Welcome, good evening. I'm here. I was a little short on the uptake, but I am present, and I'd like to start off with a big welcome to the class of 2017. It's an absolute honor to have you here this evening. So, I was very honored to be asked to give the speech today. I know that traditionally the scholar picked for this speech is prestigious, esteemed, and successful. I like to think that I may have had the possibility of getting this speech before I was elected student body president, or if I didn't have a British accent. But I think we all know that's not true. I don't take this responsibility lightly, and I was really struggling with what to do and how to kick it off. How do I fill the shoes of some of the most decorated Morehead-Cains in the program who've given this speech before me? Do I follow in their lead or try to create my own path? I was stuck. So, I decided to prove to the foundation staff and all of you this evening that during my time at Carolina, I have actually learnt how to write an essay in the proper American format. Including the key essentials of this speech as proven by speech givers before me. So, where to start? An introduction with a strong thesis statement. So, good evening. My name is Christy Lambden, and I'm a Tar Heel. I'm sorry, I had to. I've always wanted to do that. My responsibility this evening is to try and be a little funny, a tall order I know, to provide some advice to the class of 2017 by reflecting on my last 3 years at Carolina, and to, of course, make sure that the cheer-off between the Brits and the Canadians is only going one way, a British way. So I'd like to finish that debacle to start off with, and I would like to thank the Canadian constituency for adding a little bit of class to the evening. I don't think a banquet is ever fully successful unless we have a round of Carly Rae Jepsen. So thank you so much. But now I know you're all waiting for that strong thesis statement that I promised. So here it is. Ultimately, I will seek to prove through this speech that the Morehead-Cain experience is the best university experience on offer in the world. Now, I've learned after the introduction and the thesis statement, come the body paragraphs. So we'll kick this off. Now, when you get back from your outdoor leadership summer, I find that people are generally separated into two groups. You either come out saying that you're never going to do it again, or you're one of those weird-ass people who say that they want to go and become an outward-bound instructor for the rest of their lives. Now, I think you can probably guess which camp I fall into. But before I went on my outward-bound experience, I knew that I didn't want to hike anywhere. And let's face it, many of those courses, while they don't explicitly say hike, are just different words for walking up increasingly steep hills and mountains. So, instead, I decided to go canoeing in the Boundary Waters. What I failed to comprehend when I was doing this was that the Boundary Waters, rather than being a river that I could just sit on, were actually instead a collection of lakes. And the only way to get between them was to, of course, hike. But much to my dismay, not only did I realize that I had to hike, but instead of just having to do it with a backpack on, I now had to carry a bloody 120-pound canoe and make the trip back to collect all the backpacks. Truth be told, I don't remember much about my outward bound experience. I remember that it was an intense and about a month too long. But thankfully, I had the wonderful opportunity to be reminded about my outward bound experience again this summer, when I was forced to go on yet another trip, backpacking through the Pisgah National Forest. You can imagine my pure delight at the prospect of going on another outward bound course, which openly admitted that it was hiking up a mountain. Now, there was one key difference between this course and the first one, and no, it wasn't that I got to pick who I went with. This time, we had no tents. Instead, we had the luxury of a tarp. Now, for those of you who haven't had the misfortune of sleeping under a tarp, in my opinion, there are a couple of key design flaws. The main one being that when the tarp is set up, it doesn't touch the ground on any side. Now, this leads to two problems, mainly. Firstly, the bugs are able to come in and sleep with you overnight. And secondly, while the tarp may be useful in terms of stopping rain coming down on top of you, if you're not lying on flat ground, and let's face it, you're in a mountain, you're not lying on flat ground, generally the water runs downhill and ends up joining you in the tarp. And inevitably what happens is you wake up with what I can only describe as a small river. But when I came back after my second Outward Bound experience, I came and told the foundation staff about my trials and tribulations and the flaws in the tarp design. And I was mocked for complaining about my experience. So tonight, I am launching a campaign to send all of the foundation staff on an Outward Bound experience. It is absolutely essential that they understand what we as scholars suffer through on our trips. And no, they can't go together. They must go with at least 3 convicted felons. All right, body paragraph number 2. You'll notice I'm getting quite good at this. So, assimilating to a college environment, especially an American college environment, was difficult. It was nothing like I'd expected growing up in England. Southern hospitality was actually a thing. The weather was awesome in comparison, and life was pretty good. The only real problem that I had were the questions that I got directed at me. It made me really question the standard of students at Carolina. My favourite conversation went as follows. We were in the foyer of Hinton James. You're British? Yes. Do you know Harry Potter? The fictitious character? Yes. Yes, actually we were really good friends. I graduated from Hogwarts last year. Professor McGonagall wrote my recommendation. Wow, that's awesome! Apart from that one interlude, I loved everything about Carolina, especially the people. I also started to realise how awesome the people around me in the Morehead-Cain program were. They all had GPAs in high school of at least a 4.0, had started charities and businesses, already saved 3 African children, and planned to save many more over the course of the next 4 years. And that's when I began to feel it. The sense of expectation. Reflecting back, what I realised is that I set unrealistic expectations for myself. The foundation didn't expect me to be anything apart from myself. And this is my first piece of advice to the incoming first years. The foundation doesn't expect you to be anything more than you are. You're part of an awesome community with awesome people, but don't ever think that you don't deserve to be here. There is no rubric for a Morehead-Cain scholar. There are so many scholars that I can think of that are doing awesome things that I can only dream of doing. But at the same time, I also like to think that I can do at least one thing that some other scholars can't. So challenge yourself to be the best version of you. At the same time, use the resources that the Foundation offer you to become the best version of yourself. Get discovery funding, attend sessions with the alumni and residents, and take the offer of coaching with Diane. All of those are vital opportunities that other students at Carolina don't have access to. So accept the gifts that the Foundation give you, and make sure that you maximize them. I knew that my public service summer would probably be my favourite summer, and I turned out to be correct. I spent 8 weeks working with animals and kids near Kruger Park in South Africa, with Daktari Bush School and Wildlife Orphanage, and I would encourage everybody to look into it. I was with a fellow scholar, John Burrows. Is John here? Yes. Hey, John. And after we'd finished at Daktari, we decided to go travelling and drive the garden route across the south of South Africa. We rented a vehicle, and then on our first night travelling, we decided that we wanted to get dinner at a local pub before returning to the hostel we were staying at. Dinner went well, it was good food, but as we were leaving the bar, we walked past the biggest man I've ever seen. He was about 6'8" and must have weighed well over 300 pounds. Now, we thought nothing more of him and got into the car to head back to the hostel. Now, I probably should recognise at this point that John and I do have different versions of the story, but unfortunately for John, I'm stood up here and he isn't. So, I was driving and John was in the passenger seat in charge of the phone and the GPS for navigation. Now, for those of you who don't know John, he's one of the best people I've ever met. But he's also one of those people who loved Outward Bound, and as a result, kind of hates technology. So, putting him in charge of both devices was a pretty big step. Anyway, we were stopped at a red light in a double-lane road. I looked in my rearview mirror and noticed that a car nearly careered straight into the back of us. I pointed this out to John, but thought nothing more of it until the light turned green and the car pulled into the inside lane. The driver, who I now recognised as the huge man from the bar, started to swerve his car into us, seemingly trying to get us off the road. After this happened for the second time, I decided that enough was enough and decided to flick him off. For some reason, this only seemed to anger him more. We were forced to stop side by side by the car at a red light. And while we were stopped, the driver got out of his vehicle and moved towards ours. Now, this was a car that we'd only had for about 2 hours and still had absolutely no idea how to use the central locking system. And as I've already established, John would have been no help in this region. So, as the driver neared my door to try and open it, I panicked and hit the lock. 2 seconds before he attempted to open my door. He hammered on my window, screaming in Afrikaans, and as the light turned green, I screeched away, took a quick left and a quick right. Thinking that I had successfully lost him, I slowed down the pace a little. But as I looked in my rearview mirror, lo and behold, the car had rejoined us. Now, instead of being on a main road, we were on one of the back streets of the city, with no idea where we were. I started to scream at John to call somebody and use the telephone and figure out exactly how to get us back to the hostel using the GPS. Now, as we approached a T-junction, the driver overtook us and cut us off. He hopped out of the car again, and as I put the car in reverse, he chased it, aiming a flailing kick at our vehicle. Now, for the first time ever in a car chase, I conducted a perfect three-point turn and started heading in the opposite direction, politely inquiring with John about the progress of both the phone and the GPS. Unfortunately, John replied that he had not made any progress on either and was struggling with both machines. Eventually we got back to the main road and recognised the exit that we need to take. And with one final swerve into us, the other car left us alone. So, some key takeaways from this story. Don't flick off an angry African giant if you don't want to get into a car chase. And make sure that you know how to work the equipment. So, I've learned that at the end of every essay, there needs to be a conclusion. Something that ties the essay together in a motivational and inspiring way and leaves the reader wanting more. So here we go. 4 years ago, when I started to seriously look at the Morehead-Cain Foundation in Carolina, I had no idea what to expect. When I came and visited Carolina, I began to realize what it was all about. The Morehead-Cain program has a great history. It offers incredible opportunities and promotes values that I completely agree with. But all of that pales in comparison to you. The students and staff that make the Morehead-Cain program more than a scholarship, more than a great opportunity, that make Carolina a home and make the Morehead-Cain program a family. The friends that you make at Carolina define your experience. And I already know that the hardest thing I will have to do at Carolina is on Sunday, May 12th, 2014, when I have to turn the tassel from one side to the other and admit that there will never be a time like I've had these last 4 years. To say goodbye to the community, friends and family that have made Carolina my home. So my biggest piece of advice to all of you is to set aside ambition and competition for just a second and enjoy this. Have fun. You only get this for 4 years, so enjoy every single minute of it. Thank you.